What's going on, everybody? My name is Terminus, and today we are going to watch Monster episode, where were we? Fucking hell. Episode 11 and 12. 11 and 12. At least that's the plan. I don't know if I can actually get 11 and 12 done today, but we'll see. We'll see how, if I'm getting interrupted or whatnot, but, new place, but let's ignore that. You don't want to know a lot about my private life and whatever, but we're just gonna get right into it. There was, I think, last time we did have a very interesting development where we actually start seeing 𝔸𝕠𝕦's chase, basically, I guess, of Johann, and how he starts engaging with Johann when it comes to just the general tenacity with which 𝔸𝕠𝕦 is now on the hunt, right? He is, as I think Vincent said in one of his comments, basically in Johann mode at this point. Johann kind of changed him. Obviously, we do see that 𝔸𝕠𝕦 still has retained his humanity, right? His big struggle with being able to actually possibly kill a person, but he has the resolve at this point. He sees that as more or less the only viable solution, much like, and Vincent did bring up this metaphor, that's not something coming from me, much like a surgeon who's trying to excise a tumor, or who's trying to do a very complicated operation where some kind of tissue or something is going to be cut out in order to relieve the entire body, in this case, the country, right? Which is not ravaged, but at the very least, very much affected by these murders that Johann is doing over and over and over again, and supposedly more and more. At this point, it goes way beyond just murdering the families that he personally was or is connected with, although we do actually have this information from last time. Our murderer who killed the entire 𝕠𝕠𝕦 family was actually kind of misled by Johann, and we do through him kind of experience or get the information that Johann is actually living or was living with them for a long time. Now, we don't know if that information is false or if it's right, or if in some way Johann actually managed to manipulate this clearly mentally unstable individual into believing that it was Johann who was living there and not himself, because it very much, we do have this distortion between the person who is sitting there with the gun in his hand, who is telling things like very private information about the family itself. And I personally, at the very least, maybe I kind of confused things, but I watched it back again when I was editing it, and it still wasn't clear to me if it was actually that person living with the family and eventually killing them, or if it was Johann himself who was living there. The only thing that we know is that Johann, in I think under the guise of Eric or something, met up with him and kind of was able to, I guess, pretend to be his friend and manipulate him into committing this crime, which I can only guess that this is maybe at least partially the case for a lot of the people he actually contracted to kill people in the past, right? So he meets them, he engages with them, he manages to manipulate them, and has them do his dirty work for him. Obviously, there's still also kind of a little bit of a doubt where we could assume that maybe Johann was doing the killing himself and he manipulated this individual into believing they did it. But I think that is very unlikely, because we know from past experiences from the episode so far that Johann doesn't like to get his hands dirty. He does if he has to, right? In the case of loose ends when it comes to Mr. Junker, for example, who he put down right in front of 𝔸𝕠𝕦, and he enjoyed that a lot. But yeah, Johann is definitely becoming more and more unhinged, more and more daring, right? With the messages that he leaves that are technically evidence that he was here, right? And involved in the crime. With how he engages with Dr. 𝔸𝕠𝕦 in almost an obsessive manner, right? He has a personal relationship to this person that is trying to stop him. We see that a lot, and I don't know how realistic it is, but I think there's some grain of truth to it. We see that a lot in thrillers as well, right? Political or like police thrillers and whatever, where there's serial murders going on, and the serial murder starts to engage with the people trying to find and prosecute them, right? With the police force, in order like to just gain that attention, right? Or that feeling of power over someone, because obviously Johann definitely has an effect on 𝗠𝘂, and 𝗠𝘂 is very much, as much as he has steeled his resolve in order to maybe be able to kill a person, in this case Johann, and as much as he is now an outlaw and on the run and kind of just burned all the bridges behind him, he's still very much feeling for the people, because this is his original cause, right? His entire mission, his resolve, comes from the fact that he's feeling that responsibility for people, and also, that he feels the conscience of all of these murders on himself because he saved Johann, which is the thing that Johann is playing with, that he is absolutely going in on. But yeah, this is where we left off with with Heckle and 𝗠𝘂 actually walking through the streets, and this little side plot with the terrorists, which have been detained now, right? But survived, right? Which was like he got that chance, and 𝗠𝘂 gave it to him because he's like, I can see that you regret some things that you're doing, even if you still think what you did was right, which is questionable, but you do have your causes, you don't murder because you like to murder. And even that, we could argue, obviously goes back to what happened in the life of a person. Although there would be probably a couple of voices that would say that some people are just born that way. I personally tend to disagree. I think, at the very least, right, you might be born with the capacity to do something, but there have to be certain things happening, right, in your environment, in your development. I mean, obviously that can just be stuff that you yourself and not even your direct parents or whatever have an influence on. But one thing we have to keep in mind is that human beings do need nurture. They do need to be socialized. They do need nurture. We do have a couple of cases in history of human beings who grew up in the wilds or with animals and whatnot, and they never really connected with other people, even when they were still like children of 10, 12, whatever, and they were kind of just taken in, and doctors or other people try to kind of work with them and teach them stuff. It's at this point they have a very limited capacity to first of all to do for like intelligence stuff, intelligence in the sense of like learning language, because there's certain windows in which we learn these things, right? I don't want to say they're not intelligent. I do think that it's very, very much possible that they have their own kind of intelligence that's more akin to the environment that they grew up in, right? The information they were able to take in. For example, there were cases of like children that grew up with possibly even wolves, right? And they could just smell meat from a mile away, right? And that's insane if you think about it, because you do realize that we do have the capacity to unlock these things if at the right point in time we are actually trained to do that, or we learn to do that. But on the other hand, they never learned to talk. They never really socialized with other people. They had a very, very flat affect, which means you are expressing emotions very flatly. There's not a lot going on there that other people can actually read and empathize with, and they themselves obviously weren't able to properly establish any social connections, which obviously this is not one-to-one what we have with Johann here. Johann is a very intelligent being. He is very socialized. He is highly manipulative. He knows how to work with people. He knows how to engage with people. He knows how to interact with people to get them to do what he wants. But what I'm saying is, I think there is an argument to be made that Johann had the biological or neurological requirements to become a murderer to begin with, but that there were certain events that happened, maybe certain windows of development in which his own empathy or whatever didn't properly develop, his own, and where big traumatic events happened that led him to eventually compensate for that, or have a development in which he started to get these urges for murder, or these feelings, right? He started to construct his personality, his behavior in a way that how we see him today, right? Obviously, I still think it is possible, it's more than possible, that the bullet wound in the prefrontal cortex that he had that almost cost him his life did change his behavior structurally as well, right? Did cause this escalation of what happened now. Now, we do know, most probably, we do know through Nina that Johann has been this way before the bullet, right? And she tried to stop him and kill him and whatever and end it all. But we also know that it's not that simple, right? And these changes could have escalated it, right? So he could have died, but he didn't. And now there's been brain damage in here, which is an argument to be made that Johann, being as intelligent, as witty, as incredibly insidious as he is, it is a miracle that actually this bullet wound didn't change anything about that, right? Or at the very least, if anything, made it worse. But yeah, really, really cool stuff. Obviously, the series is a little bit of a slow burn. And not a lot of people will jump on it because it is an older series. It uses more pauses. It uses more like dramatic and directorial choices to display certain things on a more subtle level. And it doesn't have like crazy animation. I do still wish that, I do still hope that more people are actually gonna enjoy this, because I think it's a really, really good series. From the directing standpoint, from like the voice acting and the way the story is spun up, it is very fascinating to see how they develop this plot. So can't wait to get into episode 11 and see what's happening there. What new characters we might meet, what Tenma is up to, maybe even get a peek at what Nina is doing, because we haven't seen her in a while, but that might still take a couple of episodes. We'll have to see. All right, so let me see. Monster episode 11 starts in 3, 2, 1. Oh, Red Berlin. Okay, okay. Why is he here, though? Oh, okay, this is why he's here. Makes sense, makes sense. Holy shit, this guy is like a stereotype.
10年前に亡命した役人のことなんか知らないよ。リーベルト夫妻はこちらにいるとき、双子の兄弟を。
Yeah, and they adopted too, of course, we know that.
出るでしょ。このうちの地主さんは紹介してもらえませんか。旧東ドイツの土地はほとんどナチ時代に逃げ出したユダヤ人資産家のものなんだ。ここの地主も外国にいるの。
alright.
我が社は壁の崩壊後に進出した西側の不動産会社ですからね。古い話は何にも知らないの。
Forget about the past, I guess.
誰か10年前のこと、リーベルトさんを覚えてる人はいませんか。さっきも言ったけど、ここらは元政府高官の住宅地だからね。壁が壊れたら大体がチリジリに逃げ出しちまって、特に内務省の役人なんかやばくって。あ、そういえば。
Ooh, we remember somebody.
ほど先に旧東ドイツ商務省の元役人が住んでるな。
We got a lead.
危ない橋渡って亡命なんかしなくても、もう少しまでは東ドイツは自滅したのにね。
I mean that hindsight is 2020, I guess.
自由の国に行ったんだかわからないよね。しかも殺されて。リーベルトさんには双子の兄弟の子供がいませんでしたか。おお、思い出した。リーベルトさんが孤児院から引き取ったあの双子。
Orphanage, yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
リベルトさんずっと子供欲しがってたしね。
その孤児院は
Ooh, 501. This is our episode title.
そうだ。511キンダーハイムだと思うな。
511
Kinderheim means a home for children, right? I do love how they really accurately kind of represent what's going on here with the tram station and whatnot. The architecture is really great. I'm sorry about that. I still need to get used to like the new position of my mic. Yeah, and obviously it's abandoned at this point. But there might be clues in there. Might find some officials that we can talk to about that. Kinda looks really haunting. And we got the intro. Alright. Back to the quiet music. I wonder if some of the people passing by in the intro are like throwaway side characters that we're meeting within the story, because some of them look really familiar. Right, like a metaphor, like passengers in the life of Tenma when he's searching for like Johan. And the blood spatters are more like prominent figures, as we see 𝕠𝕠𝕦 and Nina and even Eva. There's certainly a lot of people who are more or less on a collision course. Some of our main characters that we've seen a lot in like the last couple of episodes. I do love how they use the different layers to create the depth when they pan across some shots. Old woman? Kinda sus? Alright. Yay, capitalism, I guess.
この孤児院の関係者の方は知りませんか？
そんなもの残ってるわけないだろう。このことは話したくないね。気味悪い。
I mean, she's a bit old to have been a kid there, but
なら47番地に元厚生省のハルトマンって男がいるよ。
she might have just been a neighbor or something. It can be kind of haunting seeing these old places, like old school buildings, for example. Like, that can be really creepy if they've been abandoned for quite some time. And obviously the light is flickering, of course.
僕この辺にハルトマンさんって人住んでないかな。
He's like, what do you want, man? Seems to have a scratch.
見せてごらん。大丈夫だよ。怖くないんだから。治りかけた傷。
Dude still has his doctor stuff.
可能しかけてる。我慢しろ。ちょっとしみるが、これで良くなる。よし、オッケー。
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to trust people if you made bad experiences. But Tenma didn't do it to get the information, right? He did it because he felt like it's his duty, right? He's a doctor through and through still, even if he changed. It's like a upper middle class almost. Maybe higher class even.
東ドイツ崩壊後、私が里親として引き取っていたんです。
里親？
ええ、養子縁組や身の振り方が決まるまで。
Okay.
使っていた子たちでね。真ん中の子は服飾メーカーの社長の養子として迎えられました。左端の子は今軍隊に入ってます。今も一人預かってるんですよ。
大変なお仕事ですね。
仕事というか、なんというか。
It can fulfill you too, right? Giving back.
の地区担当官として孤児関係の仕事をしてまして、当時から政府のやり方には反対でしたからね。
Somebody with a heart for kids, I guess.
私なりのやり方で子供たちの力になれないものかと。貧乏なんで思った通りにはいきませんが。しかし、彼らも以前の孤児院にいるよりはずっとマシです。
It doesn't look poor to me, but maybe I'm wrong here.
厚生省と内務省との共同管轄の特別孤児院でした。
Interior Ministry, okay.
その中でも
Oh, we have the window.
単に身寄りのない子供たち、刑事犯の子供と亡命して捕らえられた
Ooh,
政治
okay.
犯の子供。
So we do have like a biological component, maybe.
に問われた子供たちの集まりだったんです。
And obviously you might treat them not as well.
扱いも当然でした。
Yeah.
子供たちは何をされても仕方ない立場だった。
See, here we have it, right? Injustice being done to people who aren't at fault here.
真の模範になるよう再教育すると言いながら、実際には犯罪者扱い。おまけに院長や教官は最悪。特にひどいやつは子供に届く小包も没収して転売までしてしまう。
Corruption.
犯罪者なんだか。
I mean, that's communism for you, right? I mean, not just communism, but right?
恐怖と暴力だったんです。あそこではとてもまともな人間は育たない。あの事件が起きた。
その孤児院で何が起きたんです？
あなた、あの双子のことを私に聞きたいとおっしゃいましたね。妹の方は別の地区の孤児院に預けられましたからよくは知りません。
Alright, so she stayed longer.
ハンのことはよく知っています。
ヨハン、そうです。ヨハンのことが聞きたいんです。
Alright.
あれは最高機密でした。
Okay, there's more to it, alright.
政府は徹底した箝口令を敷いたんです。
They did something special.
まあ今となっては過ぎ去ったことだし、事件について話しても構わんと思うが。
Yeah, but you don't want to be killed or something.
ヨハンが何をしたんです？
Even if the structures of power fall. A revolt?
ただいま。
ディーター、お客様だ。ちゃんとご挨拶しなさい。ディーター、なんだその態度は。ちゃんとご挨拶しないか。
いや、もうさっき家の前で会ってるんです。な。あ、それで今の話の続きなんですが。
いや、子供の前では勘弁してください。
そうですね。もうこんな時間ですので、また改めて。
Oh, please don't get killed, dude.
ご一緒に食事でもいかがですか。
Oh, okay. We're gonna have dinner. Nice.
天馬さん、フリーランスのジャーナリストということは、
Oh, that's what he poses at.
ことを記事にされるわけですね。
まあ。
それじゃあこの点だけはしっかり書いておいてほしいですね。子供の成長はすべて育てる大人にかかっている。
Not all, but most, yeah.
方向へ導かなければならない。そうして初めて子供は素晴らしい夢を見ることができる。
夢か。
I wonder what kind of anthropology that is.
サッカーボール。サッカーボールが欲しい。
そうか。
Alright.
ごちそうさまでした。もう一度ぜひお話の続きを。
いや、話が話だけに中
Oh no, we didn't finish our convo.
また
I'm afraid he's gonna get
明
killed.
日にでも連絡します。
Maybe Johan is tailing Tenma. Who knows? Could be problematic.
ディーター。
Oh, okay, yeah. I thought the child was weirdly quiet. Yeah, and he was kind of ducking behind Tenma. Yeah, I mean, it could be a fake out, but this is like, if it is what I think it is, that's definitely like negative anthropology. We'll talk about it in discussion. Very interesting. Like anthropology is just, in this context, it's generally just how we see human beings, right? What idea we have of like how a human being develops and whatnot. Oh no, Tenma's gonna go back. Oh, he's gonna go in.
天馬さん。
ディータ、どうしたんですか？
Yeah, that's child abuse. Of course he fell.
痛いよ。
どこが痛いんだ、ディータ。
痛いよ。
ハルトマンさん、救急車を。ディータ、見せてごらん。なんなんだ、このたくさんの傷跡は。ここかい。ここが痛むのかい。肋骨が2本。
Oh, holy shit, dude.
左肩を脱臼している。椅子から落ちただけでどうやってこんな怪我を。
救急車はじきに来るそうです。だからもう大丈夫です。
しかしこの傷は一体。
大丈夫と言ったでしょう。だからもうお引き取りを。
しかし
それよりあなた、その傷の触り方、まるで医者みたいですね。天馬、どこかで聞いたことのあるな。
Oh, maybe he called the police.
あなた医者ですね。あの人殺しで手配中の。
この傷は、この体中の傷は一体どうしたんですか。
そんなことより天馬さん、逃げた。
I think Tenma's gonna stand his ground.
一緒に警察も呼びましたよ。
ハルトマンさん、ディータのこの傷はどうしてついたのかと聞いているんです。
関係ないでしょう。あなたのような人殺しで追われている人間には。さすが逃亡犯だ。気が短いようですね。
あなたがやったんですね。
やった。何？
あなたはこのディータに虐待を加えている。
虐待？人聞きの悪いことを言わないでほしいな。なあディータ。
この子を病院へ連れて行きます。
殺人の次は誘拐か。
動くな。
そんなことをしてもすぐに捕まるぞ。
Well, let's see where this goes.
大丈夫。
Everywhere we go.
すぐ病院に連れて行ってやる。
Gonna meet monsters.
病院怖い。
怖くなんかないさ。お医者さんがちゃんと治してくれるさ。
痛いのいつもハルトマンさんが治してくれる。
That's a problem, right?
体中怪我してるのに病院に行ったことがないのか。
怖い。今の世の中は悪いことでいっぱいなんだ。
Maybe he's used to worse before.
じゃいけないんだ。
And this is what he's telling him, right?
ハルトマンさんがそう言ったのか。
世界は真っ暗だ。明日は真っ黒だ。
そんなことはない。世界が真っ暗だなんて大嘘だ。
本当？
ああ、本当だ。あ、忘れてた。ほら、サッカーボール。明日はきっといい日だ。
But what's gonna be after tomorrow, right? You don't know.
すみません、こんな時間に無理言って。
あ、いえ、でもね、今休館で立て込んでて治療までかなり時間がかかりますよ。
両足骨折なら喋れるでしょ。
まず治療が先です。取り調べは後にしてください。
じゃあとりあえずここで待たせてもらいますよ。2時間ほどで戻ります。あの子のことよろしくお願いします。それから私以外の人間があの子を迎えに来ても絶対に引き渡さないでください。
It's very interesting with what authority he can say that, right? If the person responsible for him legally goes in and is like, I'm gonna take him with me. It depends if the doctors see it first, right? Because they have a duty to actually stop them. The problem is, during these times back in the day,
妹の方は預けられましたからよくは知りません。
別の孤児院、それだ。
I don't follow, but we'll see where it goes.
引き取ってほしい子供がいるだって。で、何なんだいあんたは。こんな時間にいきなりやってきて。
Oh yeah, he wants to get Dieter there.
この子が幼児虐待を受けているのは分かったよ。でもあんたが誰だか分からなきゃ。
それは。
そんなわけのわからない人間から気軽に子供を引き受けるわけにはいかないね。
Alright.
もしかしてこちらはアンナ・リーベルトがお世話になっていた孤児院では。
アンナ・リーベルト。あんたアンナ・リーベルトを知ってるの？
やはりアンナはここにいたんですね。
ああ、懐かしいね。アンナは今どうしてる？元気にしてるの？
Relatively.
に通っていて。
そうかい、幸せになったんだね。いい子だったよ、アンナは。貿易局のリーベルトさんに引き取られるまでは知っているんだけど、双子の男の子と一緒にね。なんて言ったっけ？
ヨハンです。
Yeah.
そう、ヨハン。とっても仲のいい兄弟だったけど、二人は別々の孤児院に入れられてかわいそうだった。あの子たちここに来る前は本当に二人っきりだったの。
I mean, as most orphans are, right?
スロバキアの国境線あたりで保護された時も
Ooh, okay.
手をつないで歩いて
Czechoslovakia.
たそうよ。二人寒さで震えながら。
So you don't even know if they came from the same country.
最初はヨハン一人ってことだったんだけど、
Interesting.
妹も一緒じゃなきゃ嫌だって
That he actually wanted Johan.
になったんだね。
当時の東側の孤児院はひどい状況だったと聞いていますが。
511キンダーハイムと一緒にしないでほしいね。インゲ、トイレはそっちじゃないでしょ。ね、ほら。大丈夫、大丈夫。怖いことなんて何にもないよ。さ、一人でトイレに行けるでしょ。
It's hard to take care of probably a lot of children on your own, right?
あの子たちは本当の親の愛情というものを知らない。人間として成長していくには愛情しかないのよ。
Maybe not only, but
孤児院はそりゃひどいものだった。ここもね、元は47孤児院なんて数字で呼ばれる場所だった。でも私たちはそれでも何とかしようと必死にやってきた。少しでも政府の言いなりにならないように、511キンダーハイムのようにならないようにね。あそこは厚生省と内務省共同管轄の特別孤児院だったけど。
what was the purpose though?
いえ、
内情はね、内務省によって管理されてたのよ。だってあそこは旧東ドイツの。
Experimental, yeah, alright. Testing child development, right? Without any moral boundaries. That can be very, very problematic. We're actually not gonna look at the preview because I do want to keep that on my own. We'll just we'll talk about it in a second, and then we'll jump right back into episode 12, right? Yeah, so one thing you're definitely gonna notice when in this first reaction, I didn't talk a lot. That has two reasons, of course. First of all, is it was a very exposition heavy episode, so I did want to make sure not to lose too many threads of thought and to pay attention to actually get all the details. The second reason is that this is the first time I'm recording again since I stopped for a while when learning for exams and whatnot. Had been recording a lot of stuff in advance. So yeah, that's the main reason you didn't hear me talk a lot and all of that. Let's actually jump through the episodes a little bit, as we are always doing. Well, subtitle out and get this on the screen now. Yeah, let's speed that up a little bit. We do have that realtor. We can actually jump over that. It's not that important. I just do love some of these designs. This guy looks like he's a money-grubbing asshole, right? That literally, right? And you do have the yeah, I'm gonna smile for the customers kind of assholey kind of smile. With the little tip of the hair up there, which is just absolutely douchebag. But that's the great thing, right? We do have some characters that are designed. Maybe these days it would be considered a little bit offensive. It's not all that offensive, I feel, but we do definitely have stereotypes in here. We do have characters that are adhering to a certain standard that we would expect them to look like stereotypically, and we're not deviating from that too much. But that is probably also a symptom of the times, right? A symptom of the time this anime was released in, and kind of reflects the fact that we didn't have an oversaturation of stereotypes at this point in time, and that culturally we have gone from a place where we are less sensitive and less aware of these things to a place where we are more aware of these things. But yeah, very cool. Tenma is going. He's on the hunt. He's looking for some kind of clue as to where Johann was before he was, or as he was taken in by the 𝔸𝕬𝕠𝕦 or before. And we do see his investigative work. We're dealing a lot with old East German institutions, right? The Ministry of Health, the Interior Ministry later on, as we hear about these. These are a lot of ex-government officials, people who were kind of probably, not all of them were bad, but a couple of them were probably the ones sitting at the top, being in power, gaining money and privileges, while everybody else was just getting the same stuff and working, no matter how they functioned, right? That's kind of the problem with the principle of, like, at the very least, communism within a system that is still mainly capitalistic or exists in the capitalist world, because we still have to make money, right? Money is at this point a self-perpetuating system, a system that is so widespread that you can't, or it is very hard to get around it, right? And so you have to kind of play within that sphere. If you want stuff from outside, you need money. And if you want money, you need to kind of do trade with other countries, with other stuff. And as soon as that gets established, you have to think about, how is my internal structure working? Because if I'm abolishing money completely, which I guess would be like the socialist ideal, you do have the issue that you don't have as convenient a system to exchange goods, to exchange services and whatnot. And then you have to think about, okay, we give everybody the same. There's no incentive for anybody to be better, right? To do more, and no incentive for anybody, right? Or all the incentive for people to try to get away with the least possible effort. And then there's an incentive for the people who are at the top and making the laws and kind of guiding the country to be like, I have all this power at the tip of my fingers, right? And power corrupts, right? There's been this saying, right? Power corrupts and ultimate power corrupts all. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And you do have this problem that you are at the control room, right? Guiding everything, and then you're like, why wouldn't I take money or take goods or take special privileges from person X, Y, Z in order for me to then give them some privileges that I can give them as part of the government, right? And I can live my nice, luxurious life while everybody else is just down and just living a normal-ass, gray, boring life that is absolutely the same as everybody else's. We do see that a lot in like books like George Orwell's Animal Farm, for example. Not to speak of like Big Brother in like 1984 and whatever, but that has a different thematic, right? The themes are in there as well, but the main thematic here is like absolute surveillance and right and dystopian states and fake news. Interestingly enough, right? You or things like you control the language of a certain nation, of a certain country, or of the world. You control the people because language is the way people communicate ideas. And if the language of the people is more simple, if the language of the people is reduced to a certain extent, then you only have a reduced sphere in which you can properly convey ideas to other people. And as such, you are more limited in your capabilities to actually think and question things and whatever. And that's also a very interesting thing. I think the East did that a lot as well. I don't know about the West. Obviously, the West was a little bit more free, but on the other hand, right, more capitalistic, which is more cutthroat in that way. But back then, when Germany was rebuilt, right, in the West, obviously a big part of why it was so good economically was also that there was a certain extent of, on the one hand, we do have that great production, right, being built up and a lot of like good work being done, right? Competition being between different companies, because you don't have that socialist model of like the state owns everything, but you do have like different companies wanting to succeed and then trying to make better products and whatever, right? And people wanting to earn more, so they give more effort during work. But you also have, on the other hand, the social security of you pay your taxes and whatever, and from those taxes you actually get health insurance, you get securities and whatnot. All of this stuff actually established itself way earlier, right? Even back with Prussia and whatever, there was already a lot of like social policies. I think I remember like Bismarck was one of the first who made that law that was kind of like that included insurances for sickness and for workplace accidents and whatever. And even like kind of a retirement fund system, although at that point it was still just symbolic, because most of the time, like I think the age was 70 where you went into retirement. Most people actually didn't make it that far. Like a couple of people, but not that many back when, like in the 18th century. But yeah, very cool, very interesting. I had a tangent, I'm sorry. Like I said, I do love the architecture. It's very, like, you can immediately see, as somebody who is from Germany, it looks super familiar if you look at it. I don't know about Berlin, because, I mean, I've seen Berlin. I wasn't in Berlin myself so far, but like it looks very German in terms of like the architecture. And what you do see, like in contrast to a lot of Western German cities and Western German German towns and whatever, in Western cities you do see a lot of buildings that look a little bit older, not in the sense that they're like that they're not maintained well, but older in a sense that they look more brick and mortar, that there's more like I mean that there is more like different shapes to it, that you do see more almost castle-y kind of buildings here and there. And here in the east you do see more buildings like that are very blocky and remind you a lot of like the Soviet era buildings that are being, or that were built back in the day, that were very functional, but these gray blocks of concrete. Again, the artistry is great, right? Like the looming shot over the building, like with the shadow that 𝔠𝘂𝘀𝕐 casts. And we do see like the creepy atmosphere of like an abandoned house. And even if this house wasn't kind of a house of abuse, a house of like horrible things happening inside, even then it would probably be kind of creepy when it was like being left alone for some time. But especially with what we get to know during this episode, it's really, really rough. And it looks very, very unsettling. Through the streets, you see that like I could look at every shot and just be in love with it. 𝔠𝘂𝘀𝘀 meets this kid and is being a doctor, his doctor self as always. And the kid doesn't trust him. And in the beginning I was like, right? Maybe kid grew up on the street, right? We're gonna meet him later. He's kind of distrustful because a lot of people were bad to him, right? And I was partially right? He was from an orphanage and he was actually being taken in by this dude here. What's his name? Hartman or something? Yeah. And he's like this nice old grandpa dude, at least from like an outsider. He's like, I care about the kids. I want to do like stuff. And as we get to know later, like there is something very sinister behind that facade, and maybe he doesn't even see that. I mean, obviously he was full masked down in that later portion of the episode where he actually called the police on Tenma and whatnot and was kind of just using leverage. But I think in his mind, he still believes he is in the right to do these things, right? There's a certain image of humanity, right? An anthropological image, as we do say, that is behind that, what he's doing here. We do have, by the way, very cool, we see the shot that we actually saw in the intro where Johann was standing. And this was kind of an experimental facility where people were kind of being, right, kids were being prodded and experimented on, maybe not in a physical sense, but in a sense of how do you raise a child to become the perfect whatever, right? Whatever we need them to be. Maybe serial killer this one, or like soldier this one, secret police this one, right? Obedient to the government and whatever. Obviously they failed with Johann. They failed with Johann big time. But yeah, we are interrupted, and we do see that, and like I thought when he was like, oh, he's very attached to him, but I kind of misinterpreted that, because definitely he's like, please don't leave me alone with him, like deep down in some form. But obviously we do also see later that he has kind of low-key a little bit Stockholm syndrome on that front as well, that he's like, right, this is everything he tells me, and this is my world, and hospitals are bad, and the world outside is bad, and I need to be tough to actually survive, and what Mr. Hartman is doing to me, like the abuse and whatever, that's what I right, I just need to tough it out, and that's how it is. And that's crazy. We do see, like, during the dinner, I thought he was a very quiet kid, a very distrustful kid, but I was kind of just putting that off to, he's from an orphanage, right? So I was like, okay, he's seen some shit, but he's healing. But no, he ain't. We close the door, and suddenly it's mask off. And we do have the same plot point. Tenma is trying to buy something for somebody he met and he emphasizes with, and comes back and he's like, hey, I got the present. And he's acting all like he wasn't responsible for it and whatnot. And this is how it works, right, with abuse. Interestingly enough, there's this dichotomy, there's this like cognitive dissonance between, I think what I'm doing is right to a degree, and it is my right to do it, and it can't be any other way. And on the other hand, I hide it from other people because they judge me for it, right? It's like everybody else is wrong about how you do things. I do it the right thing, and because they would be kind of judging me negatively or getting me in trouble if it was known that I was abusing this child, right? That I was hitting him. Then, right? That's why I'm hiding it, right? That's why I'm using anything I can to gain leverage to actually not get reported. It's insane, right? That there's such a... But, I mean, who knows how he grew up? Maybe he grew up the same way with his father and whatnot. Especially in the time he grew up, maybe they still used the belt or whatever. But even then, like, there's this... I talked about it, negative anthropology. What we do say is, like, there's generally 3 different ways we do see how you raise children, right? Or not how you raise children, how humankind, right? What kind of natures humans have, right? We say some people think that humans are naturally or by default they're good deep down, right? They want to be good, they want to develop, and what we need to do is just leave them, right? Some of them say that, right? Descartes in his famous like his famous book Emile is writing that you just need to leave humans alone, and they're gonna figure out everything else, and it's actually society that corrupts us and makes us bad. And then there's other people who believe that, for example, had that a lot in authoritarian societies and whatnot, where they do believe that humans are inherently bad, and you need to kind of you need to educate the bad out of them. And then there's the middle road, where not the middle road, but a completely different thing, where some, like John Locke, for example, was convinced that humans are actually a completely blank slate. There's nothing inherent to them, and if you wanted to, no matter the talents or proclivities or whatever, you could raise a human being to be specifically what you want them to be if you do it the right way. Which is obviously kind of wishful thinking, I feel, right? First of all, if a human turns out really good, you attribute that all to yourself as the one educating and raising them up. And on the other hand, if they turn out bad, then you have to blame yourself as well, of course, which is hard, but it's wishful thinking to believe that human beings are just a blank slate and you can turn them into anything you want. There's definitely temperaments, there's genetic components, there's a lot of stuff that goes into the individuality of a human being, and Yeah, but I think a lot of people these days do believe in a positive anthropology, right? They do believe that people are inherently good to a degree, right? But there's certain negative elements, obviously, and we all struggle with our own problems. And what we need to do, at least that is the consensus in the Western world at the moment, is to give them direction and help them develop in a way that helps them personally, right? Gets them into a position where they are where they find out who they want to be and then actually are able or have the chance to achieve it. But this is definitely a negative anthropology that he has here, right? Hitting people, right, to discipline them, which goes back to humans need to get the bad driven out of them, right? Just a little excursus into like educational psychology. Not psychology, but more like educational sciences and whatnot, and what's actually at the foundation of how we construct theories about how to raise people and how to socialize them, because there has to be some kind of general image underneath that what we believe humans to be and how humans are, and then we need to form the theory from there and think, right, how do I raise them properly? What methods do I use and what do I need to do? How much do I actually need to control what they're doing, right? And hard socialize them, basically. And how much do I just need to let them explore and experience these things themselves so they can become who they want to be, right? Figure out who they want to be and all of these things. Tenma does his duty. He's saying, all right, I'll be back. Doesn't want to get caught by the police, of course, because then he couldn't help the kid either. But he's very concerned about Hartman actually coming in and taking him away. And there wouldn't be any recourse against that, right? Especially, like, I mean, you think about the laws, right? He is legally, he is the person who has custody over the child, so he can just be like, nah, I'll take him with me. Unless a doctor is like, no. Like, a doctor is like, this child needs medical care and maybe even, like, right, possibly abuse. But that depends if the doctor can actually look at the kid before Hartman comes in and is like, I'll take him with me. Tenma doesn't like that. Most definitely not. But he thinks about Anna Lieber and he's like, hey, maybe this orphanage can take him in. I don't know if they're gonna take him in, but at the very least he got information by dropping Anna's name and getting to know a little bit something about like the connotations of what some of these orphanages were versus what the others were, right? There's obviously always something where people are aware that they can't really just rebel against the regime, but maybe they can take as much liberty as they are allowed to without being shut down in order to soften the blow of what would be happening to these kids if they would just follow orders strictly. Which I think it's always nice to have, well, reasonable but also nice people here that are doing these things, that are working that, right? And even if you do feel like ultimately you can't change it, like the complete system and all of that, it is better than doing nothing, and long term maybe you will be able to change the system, or the system will be changed, right, by means of like the society in general realizing that this is not how it's gonna be done or how it should be done, and doing something about it. And obviously for that you need to raise awareness, and you need to have people in the system who are not happy with the system, who are like, I mean, I'll do what you tell me to the degree because I don't have the power to actually say no, like to give you a hard no, but I'll do what I can in order to do the things that I think are right. Obviously, we have the downside to that, right? The flip side to that with Hartman. Yeah. All right, let's get this started. Episode 12, I think. Methinks. Episode 12 of Monster starts in a 3, 2, 1. No, and we pick up where we left off. Czechoslovakia, okay. Yeah. Didn't even address that. And we're going right into the intro. I think it's nice that we actually have a repeat of that. Because it's very important, right? Very important aspect that we do need... Sorry. We do need love. We do need affection growing up to actually function as human beings. There's been like horrible experiments in the past, we'll talk about it a little bit in the discussion later, where people like children have just been left alone, right? They've been getting food, they've been getting nurtured in a way, right? But only on like a nutritional level, and you left everything else alone. These experiments turned out horrible. None of the children survived. Like, there have been various instances of that, like in the eastern parts of Europe, in Germany / Prussia itself, and also in other regions of the world, and obviously also the accidental cases of children just surviving but not getting any real human interaction and affection. A little experiment, alright. Perfect, so alright, here we are. Reconstruction. Break them and then build them up again. So much for the biological hypothesis, right? Train the humanity out of them. Contract killers? At least that was the intent. Of course it was, gotta hide your crimes. And they escaped too. Oh, and it was Hartman, right? Psychiatry. Think about that. And again, like psychiatry and psychology was something completely different in like National Socialist times and in like times of the USSR. Yes, me.
そんな話もすべて例の事件で闇の中だけどね。
511キンダーハイムで何が起きたんですか？
ちょっと喋りすぎたよね。嫌なこと思い出しちゃった。
お願いします。あそこで何があったか教えてください。
サッカーボールは僕のサッカーボールは？
ああ。はい、ここにあるわよ。でもサッカーは怪我が治るまでお預けよ。もうすぐあのおじさんが迎えに来るって言ってたから、それまで静かに寝てるのよ。
I wonder if Tenma is actually going back right away or... I do have a suspicion Hartman's gonna come before he can.
院長の後釜を狙っての勢力争いが起きたの。院内は無政府状態になったらしい。子供たちの内部構想もコントロールできない状況だった。あそこからよくヨハンは出られたもんだよ。
それで511キンダーハイムは
Maybe Johan just killed them all.
死んだのさ。教官を含めて孤児院のメンバー全員。
Holy shit.
あそこで殺し合ったんだ。
And I think Johan probably had a lot to do with that.
世界が真っ暗だなんて大嘘だ。明日はきっといい日だ。
ディータ
Here we go.
会が来たわよ。
Yeah, Hartman's gonna come in, he's like... Oh, is he gonna kill him? Gotta delete the evidence.
やだよ。
ディータはいい子だろ。
That is despicable. Absolutely despicable. What some people do.
私が帰ってくるまでディータを渡さないでくれって言ったでしょ。
でも
あの人、あの子の里親ですよ。それにとても紳士的な人だったわ。あなたよりずっとね。
いや、しかしあの男は。
それにあの子、自分から進んで彼についていったの。
And people just don't understand, or they gloss over it, right? They don't want to see it. You close your eyes before the ugly nature of that. Then again, like back then, it wasn't as... Society wasn't as aware of these things. And they're gone. So what are we gonna do now?
戻ってないのか。
It's a little bit too empty.
ハルトマンの書斎か。
Breaking and entering technically, but yeah, I mean, you do it. Just do it, 𝔸𝕚𝕐. Fuck this guy. Maybe you find some clues. I mean, he probably would have deleted the evidence though. I'm pretty sure though that like he's under the amazing impression that he is such a great guy. And that what he's doing is right, but absolute fucking monster as well.
時期はバラバラみたいだが、どれも同じ場所で撮ってる。どこだここは。
The orphanage, maybe? That would be my guess, yeah. But that's not Dieter, actually. Dieter, Hartman, I mean. That's somebody else.
一緒に写っているこの男は誰だろう。
Either one of the doctors?
写真はすべて𝕠𝘂𝘀𝗶𝗰キンダーハイムで撮られた。
Or Hartman's superior.
10年以上も前から現在まで。
Man looks a little bit old though, he could be dead at this point.
メンバー全員があそこで殺し合ったんだよ。
ディータ。
I mean, to be honest, Johan was right in this case if he did it. Just fuck him, right? Just fucking murder them all. Justified. I don't know, a little exploration tour. Do wonder if the gray in 𝔸𝕚𝕐's hair is actually supposed to be like gray, actual gray streaks, or if it's just still like a stylistic choice. I mean, it's obviously a stylistic choice, but if it's also supposed to show that. Oh, look, a football, not a soccer ball. Oh no, don't! You better not. Me is gonna race out the whole orphanage and burn him down with it. Oh, he is rough. But did Hartman expect it?
この子には見えないらしい。あの時、ヨハンがここから見ていたものが。 この子には見えないんだよ。ダメだ。この子もヨハンじゃない。
He wanted to create another Johan? Is that it?
みんな死んでいた。10年前の話だ。教官も孤児も50人全員が息絶えていた。
How?
ヨハンはそれを眺めていた。
Oh, I'm sure he did.
この場所から彼は眺めていた。
I'll ask yourself,
ハンはただ眺めていたんだ。
I mean, I can't blame him.
ヨハンに
After knowing what we know now.
一体何をしたんだと。彼はこう答えた。こうして油の染み込んだ布を焚き火にかざしてね。どうだい？
Metaphor, right?
この意味がわかるかね。人が集まると憎しみが生まれる。僕はそれにほんの少し油を注いだだけだよ。
Very simple way of looking at it.
言ったんだよ。
But
10歳の少年がだよ。そして彼はやってのけたんだ。自分は指一本動かさずに50人もの人間を殺し合わせたんだ。
and now we see the extent, right? The
あなた
preparation,
たちの実験が彼をそんな人間にしてしまったんじゃないか。
the manipulation.
私たちがそんなとんでもないよ。確かに511キンダーハイムは実験場だった。孤児たちを完璧な兵士に育て上げるプロジェクトのね。今から思えばそれもささやかな実験だ。ところがヨハンはどうだ。彼が兵隊？彼は生まれながらの指導者だ。彼は頂点に立つべき人間だったんだよ。私たちがあんな芸術品を作れるわけがない。
Yeah, I mean, yeah, okay, just shove it all on him. Yeah, call him a monster to begin with. You didn't do anything.
人間は結局皆憎み合い殺し合う。
I'm sorry, but you partially made him who he is.
彼はこう言ったんだ。この世の終わりにたった一人生き残ることだ。とね。
Interesting insight.
ディータ、明日は暗闇だ。お前も少しでもヨハンに近づかないと。なのにどうしてダメなんだ。どうしてヨハンのようになれないんだ。
やめろハルトマン。これ以上暴力を振れば撃つ。
出て行ってくれ。これは私たちの問題だ。出て行ってくれ。
ディーター、降りてくるんだ。
Narcissism.
ドクターテンマ、あんたヨハンのことを知りたいんでしょ。ヨハンのことを知ってどうする。見つけ出して殺そうなんて無理な話だと思うよ。一つだけ情報をあげよう。その代わりそれを聞いたら私たちのことは放っておいてくれ。
Tenma, please just be a fucking Jed, say yes, and then kill him anyway. He's gonna stand his ground. He's not even gonna pretend.
ウォルフ将軍を探せ。最初にヨハンの才能を見出したのは彼だ。
General Wolf.
きっとどこかで生きているはずだよ。
あなたの書斎にあったあの写真の男か。ヨハンと一緒に写っていたあの男か。
ヨハンを連れてきたのも彼だし、あの人
Ooh.
なら何か知って
He knows his origins.
言ってくれ。
ディーター、そこから降りるか降りないか自分で決めるんだ。心配いらない。ハルトマンがライフルの引き金に指をかけたら私が撃つ。ディーター、自分で決めろ。君自身で決めるんだ。
私と別れるなんてできるわけないよな、ディーター。だってお前は私の子供だもの。さあ消えてくれ。
Don't be so hasty, man. I'll make our own choices, right? One step is enough. And obviously this is a loss of power for him.
ディーター、
そうだ、大丈夫。ゆっくり
ゆっくり。
ディーター、戻っておいで。私の可愛いディーター。ディーター、私から離れて生きていけると思っているのか。ディーター。
Right. Dependency.
愛しているんだ。
I'm sure you do, buddy. I'm sure you do.
世界は真っ暗だ。明日は真っ黒なんだぞ。
But he didn't shoot.
おじさんが言ってた。明日はいい日だって。
ディーター。
勇気を持て。怖くない。
Is he gonna shoot himself? No, he's just gonna. Alright. You know, ask yourself how a person becomes like Hartman, right? I said that in the last episode already, but what fundamental ideas and experiences go back to him becoming the way he is?
ここからバスに乗って𝕠𝘂𝕠𝕦𝕥で降りるんだ。すぐ目の前の孤児院だ。そこの𝔸𝕚𝕞𝕡𝕤って先生にこれを渡すんだ。見た目はおっかないけど根はすっごく優しいおばさんだ。元気でな。私は訳あって町には行けない。ここでお別れだ。
Maybe we'll meet again.
サッカー上手くなるんだぞ。
I mean, this is all he can do, right? Can't take of him. Take care of him.
ダメだ。私についてきちゃ。それ。ディーター、ダメだって言ってるだろ。私についてきちゃ。
Maybe you need to make a promise.
ついてきちゃ。
Oh, is he gonna come with him? This would be interesting, right? For the dynamic. This would be interesting. It complicates things, but it's also kind of could make for a lot of interesting elements. Oh, and we have a new one. I love how like the ED stuff changes. Wonder who that represents. I mean, it surely has to do with Johan's development. Right, the stuff we've gotten to know about him. Alright, preview, next episode. What's gonna be? Medical gowns, police. Petra and Schumann, okay. Right, cool. Interesting, intriguing. I don't know what that means, but you know, we'll see when we get to it. Right, let's talk about it. I don't know. I mean, I think I don't remember one of the points I wanted to actually talk about, but we'll have to see if I do remember that. Oh yeah, love and attention, right? Affection as well are very important in a child's development. Like I said in the episode, a lot of these children that grew up in the wild, right? A lot of like children that were not being properly attended to on an emotional level, on a socializing level, right? On a human interaction level, they die very quickly, right? They die very, very quickly. Far before they reach maturity, which is insane if you think about it. There's a couple of animals where this applies to, but most animals actually mature very quickly, right? If you look at mice, if you look at cats, if you look at cows or whatever, right? The young are very quickly able and capable to take care of themselves and live on. Not humans. And this has been proven at very least for modern humans in society, because there have been horrible experiments in the past. One of the experiments, for example, I think it was like in Prussia, where the king or some kind of person that had land wanted to experiment what the original human language was, and then instructed some institution to actually take care of children, but only give them food and drink and leave them completely alone other than that. And you do realize that, yeah, they die very quickly. They have very little interactions. They don't work on a like social relationship level. They have very low intelligence. Well, intelligence, or at the very least, they show very low cognitive performances. And they have a very hard time if you later try to teach them stuff to learn any more of that, right? Languages, whatever. So yeah, no language. There's no like base. I mean, there was a base language certainly, but you don't develop it just based on your biological your biological material, your genes. It's socialization, right? It's experience and observational learning is a lot of that. Just observing other people talk with one another and people talk with you. And we had the same with, like, I think Eastern Europe, where there was a time when they actually started in orphanages to not take care of children on any emotional level, and did that experiment, and these kids died in droves as well. There barely any of them survived, and the ones that did survive were not able to properly function in society. So yeah, humanity, like humans, are beings who are fundamentally reliant on getting attention, getting love, and being socialized and experiencing affection. And now here in this little experiment, which I'm pretty sure is probably like the backstory is inspired by these horrible things that have been done in the past. We do see how this would maybe manifest itself even if they take care and attention of that, right? They take care to socialize them in their own way, right? They don't socialize them for society, but for the purposes that they want them to have, right? To be loyal, to be perfect soldiers, to be like perfect killing machines. But yeah, you do leave out that very important component of the emotional connection, of the affection. And here we see maybe a little bit stereotypically, but in my opinion, very important that we highlight that the other side of the coin of like just how it can be done differently, how it can be done maybe properly, taking care of the emotional needs of people, understanding what their own perspective and worldview is, guiding them. Obviously, it's still important to give people a structure. It's still important to teach people our cultural norms and like general morals of society, but and discipline them maybe even, but discipline can be done differently, right? These days it's more done through like positive reinforcement, right? If you do this, if you achieve this, or if you actually can manage to take care of yourself in certain ways, we're going to reward you with, I don't know, something nice to eat, something you like, right? Doing something with you, right? Spending quality time, so to speak, with you. Showing you affection, although that's also kind of a double-edged sword, because you should not just be showing affection if people show the desired behavior. In like therapy, we talk a lot about this, that it is very difficult for some people that later go on to have issues, that a lot of these people grow up learning that them being loved is dependent on how they behave, right? Them being loved is dependent on the actions they show, which can be very difficult because unconditional love is one of the main factors for healthy growth of a human being. So what we try to do in therapy in some cases, not in all, but in a lot of the cases, is to accept the human being the way they are. Not judge them as human beings for their actions, but rather judge their actions and tell them, okay, maybe this is not good what you're doing here, or this is not, or I don't like where this is going, but not project that onto the very being of that person and make them feel bad about who they are as an individual. Accept them the way they are, right? Show them that your affection, your positivity is not reliant on how they behave, but rather that obviously if you do show positive behavior that is in line with your personal goals of growth, right, and things that are good for you, you obviously need to positively reinforce that, but also show them that there is a base level of acceptance for the person that they are. even if it, like, right, a lot of people struggle with these things. Like, I have negative thoughts, I have thoughts that are morally wrong, right? I do have conflicting desires within me, and I do feel like a bad person for having these, but you need to kind of start on a level as a therapist or any person that is kind of close to this person, to be like, I accept you the way you are, and it's okay to have these things, these thoughts, these desires, all of these things. I'm gonna help you work on how you want to handle these things in the future, so that you are able to live a relatively normal life, that you are able to not hurt other people, not hurt yourself, right? And achieve the goals you want to achieve. But we need to get that level of acceptance, and I think that is very important. And a lot of these psychologies of, like, back in the day with like Eastern Germany, but also a lot of authoritarian countries, or even countries that were not necessarily super authoritarian, but back in the day, they when they did experiments like these, where they were like trying to create the perfect citizen, the perfect soldier, the perfect whatever, right? It's a lot about like breaking everything inside of you, right, mentally, and then building it back up. The problem is the things you break, like the if you want to take that metaphor, right, like all of the splinters, they're still there. They're still there. You're not gonna be able to just like put them in the trash and then build something new, the foundation on that. And that, in my opinion, also proves that like human beings are not just a blank slate, right? Especially if you go into that and your approach is break everything and then build it up again. There's gonna be shaky foundations there, and when the cracks start to appear, it's not predictable what's gonna become of people, as is aptly demonstrated in the case of Johann. Although we see that later. Again, we see that later. We don't even need to talk about that. You and me, we both know it's hard with like maybe we talk about it very shortly later on with like, if you are responsible for a person, if you're a legal guardian, and you're abusing that person, it's very hard for somebody else to come in and say like, okay, don't, right? Because you still have the authority. These people are not adults. And that is one of the big problems with child abuse, and also one of the big issues. One of the big issues with like child protective services these days, right? If we talk about child protective services, there's a lot of like youth and child work that we do neglect if we talk about these general institutions, especially here in Europe and in Germany, because there's a lot more going into this, right? Not just helping get children who are abused out of their families, or get them help, or get them in an environment that they're going to be okay in, but also the institution that is responsible for all this is also doing a lot of work with like just being there for youth, making them offers of like free time activities and educational activities and all of these things. Like these little clubs and whatever that exist on a local level, they're all under that umbrella, at the very least in Germany. So it's more than that, but when we talk about these things, it's mainly, of course, our focus is on child protective services, because we see that in all of our media, right? Crime dramas, whatever, a child is getting abused, and then we go into child protective services, and they have to actually override the authority, because parents, especially in Germany, do have the authority to educate their children however they want, up until it actually hurts their well-being, that is physical and mental well-being, and hurts the development of their independent personality, because that is very important, especially in the West, that we define that as, you're able to kind of maybe raise your child religiously how you want. You can raise your child in certain like views that you have, but you are not able to interfere in their own development, right? Hinder them with their own development, hurt them physically, hurt them mentally to the degree that they are not able or capable to actually develop properly. But yeah, we talked about it just now. I think it's very interesting to tie on to what we said before, like how Johann turned out to be, how incredibly how much adoration Hartman has for Johann, but at the same time how much he rejects being involved in what became of Johann, right? He is saying Johann was always a monster. We didn't make him like this. We couldn't even have made him like this if we wanted to. He rejects all of the guilt associated with that. He rejects all of the responsibility that comes with it. And what I'm saying is, yeah, you had a big part in that. Johann might have been like capable of being a monster from the get-go. But and maybe there was already the seed sown because they came out of like Czechoslovakia and were without parents and whatever, experienced trauma and on that level, maybe even war or whatever, right? We don't know that. And then they got picked up, they got in the orphanage, and then they got like tortured even more. Johann got tortured even more because Anna was in the other orphanage that was a little bit better. And we have the twin study, right? This is the interesting thing. We have the twin study. I just realized that. We do actually have the twin study. Both of them experienced trauma, right? They got into orphanages, but different ones. One orphanage was trying to, right, break them down and build them up to be perfect soldiers or whatever, perfect killing machines. And the other orphanage was actually trying to approach this with affection, with love, with whatever, at least as much as they could within the regime. They're both genetically very, very similar as siblings. And then we have that deviation. Anna turned out to be capable of murder, but she's not a serial killer, right? While Johann turned out the way he is. So we already have a double rejection of that genetic hypothesis that he was always a monster. This place made him the way he is, no matter how much Hartman wants to shove the responsibility away. And how much he wants to idolize Johann as this, right, as this devil, basically, as we have done in the past episodes as well with other people who have tangentially been like in contact with him or with whatever Johann did. We do have that decision, and we do see like that the power of Hartman in this case breaks over Dieter, who has been giving a ray of light, right, a hope. Right, the connection, because Tenma has made that impact on him, put him out of that environment, and apparently like the developmental window was still open for him. There was still like the opportunity for him. He was not damaged enough to not be able to see that. Right, he decides to go with Tenma. Another life Tenma saved. But Tenma will not realize that as such. It will realize that it was natural. It was what I was supposed to do. It was what anyone would have done. That is how he will see that, and he will not see that as I saved a life. I do believe that is his mentality. And Hartman, I can't even begin to analyze how a person like him works. But at the very least, you see when his power breaks and when he sees like that, he's getting rejected by his also beloved children. And I do believe that he definitely believes that he loves these children and that what he's doing is good for them in the long term. I do believe that wholeheartedly, that this is what he believes. But it's wrong. It's fucking wrong. I reject that subjective view of reality. And he breaks down here. Desperation. Don't know what he's gonna do long term. He's gonna come after Dieter again or whatever. Don't know if Dieter is gonna stay with Tenma because obviously he's very attached now, and I don't know if Tenma would be able, like, the way we end this episode, it seems very much like Tenma might take him with him for at least a certain period of time until we realize it's not working after all. Could be an interesting dynamic. Yeah, and this one, I don't know how to analyze that yet. Certainly the monster standing in front of somebody who has, I don't know, a hammer, maybe? Back of his thing, and like a little top hat. And a very big belly. Could be like, I don't know, representative for workers, like going into workers' party, workers' union, socialism, whatever. Oh, I really don't know what that thematically or metaphorically represents. Definitely the influence of somebody over somebody else, but over the monster or Johann in this case. But yeah, very, very interesting, very cool episode. Can't wait. What's next? If you did like my video, feel free to subscribe to the channel. I would really love to. I'm very close to 500 subs. At that point I could do YouTube memberships, which we could build up the same. We do Patreon, right? Where you do have benefits, and you could do it via YouTube if you don't want to support Patreon. I know a couple of people don't like Patreon. That's fine. I understand. From some, right? I understand. Maybe some people also can't do Patreon, right? I do know 1 or 2 people who are like living in the Russian area, and yeah, it's kind of hard right now. Yeah. Subscribe to the channel, check out my other videos, give me a like, all of that jazz. Check out the Patreon, check out the Discord if you want to. It's not all that active, but a couple of times we have some interesting discussions, or I'll just drop some stuff that's just happening in my life, at least regarding the specific parts of like the channel and whatever's going on. And I'll see you next time.